It's time now to answer some of your business questions. Rod and Alicia are back with us. The first one is about deciding how to grow your business.
Being a small business that's starting to grow, I've been doing everything, and I know that some parts of my business I need to stop doing, and I need to discern which parts of my business are scalable. So my question is, how do I make that decision?
All right, Alicia, you are often the first money into a company, right? The first outside money, and so you probably see this problem all the time.
All the time. It is so hard to transition from being a jack of all trades to a manager who delegates. Incredibly hard. And the two bits of advice that I often give are, one, think about what really makes you happiest in the company, right? Because if you're able to direct your time more towards that and then hire someone that takes on things that you least like, it's easier to give up control. And the second question is, where can you add the most value? Now, that could be in driving sales, or it could be in relieving bottlenecks in areas like operations or helping the culture in HR. But if you think about what makes you happiest and also how you can really drive the growth of the business, it's a little bit easier to bring other people in and let them take the reins in other areas.
The interesting part about bringing people in these early stages is because you are so involved, you have to make sure you're getting someone who is on the same page as you, who knows more than you, right? Who's better at this function, but who
And that's tough to admit. I mean, for a lot of entrepreneurs, it's their baby. They're so close to it. They were there from the beginning. They think they do everything well. You know, one thing I would suggest, I'm a huge fan of Post-it notes. I live and die by them. I would take 4 of them, put them across your desk, and make lists of things you're good at, things you love, things you're bad at, and things you hate. Really be honest with yourself. You're going to start to see overlap on these different lists, that there might be something that you love to do that you're not so good at. Once you kind of find the commonalities on this list, you're almost putting together the job description for that person. I think that's something that really any entrepreneur that's looking to scale their business, they have to have a candid conversation with themselves.
That's good. I like that process.
Yeah,
It
Post-its.
clarifies for it.
Yeah,
Post-its,
love it.
or just a piece of paper.
Or the whiteboard.
Okay, or maybe even the computer, right?
I'm dating myself
crazy.
now.
All right, next up, a viewer who wants to know about going into business with others.
One question I have is about partnerships and how to navigate it when you have really different personalities with someone that you own a business with. How do you navigate that, and potentially when do you need to decide that you need to step away and maybe do something on your own and end the relationship even though you've put a lot into it?
Okay, I want to divide this question up into 2 parts. Number 1, how do you navigate it in the beginning, right? What kinds of things do you need to talk about, sign, et cetera? And number 2, assuming you have that all in place, how do you navigate kind of the day-to-day?
Well, you'll laugh at this answer, but I often say there's so many things in business that are like dating, and I think a partnership is probably the best example, where you're looking for a complementary skill set. Obviously, someone you get along with personally. You can have different kinds of personalities. You can be good at different things. I would actually encourage that, but you do have to have that sort of chemistry and sort of experience some good times and bad times early on to see how you react to it. You know, you're right to ask the question about early on. It sounds like she might be a little further into it, which gets pretty tricky.
So what does she do now? So it sounds like she's having problems.
Yeah. So I completely wholeheartedly agree. I think that partnerships are often like marriages or any long-term relationship, where it's really key to have mutual respect and constant communication. And so that's the first thing, is really saying, like, have we made all the effort that we need to in these kind of in-depth relationships to communicate with each other what our grievances are, and are we showing mutual respect? Now, if that has been done and it's still not working, then I think the real question is, are we in an environment where every day it's toxic and the whole is not greater than the sum of the parts? If instead you really feel like you're better off on your own, then it's time to have that hard conversation, because you're only holding each other back from something better if it's in a toxic environment every day.
You know, I feel that this is one of those cases, too, that is easier said than done, right? I know many people who are in partnerships where, a good friend of mine, right, in a partnership, and she is mad at her partner every single day, but she fears not being with her because she brings something to the table that the woman I know doesn't have.
You can't bottle it up. You have to, you know, it's better to speak more quickly and address something. You know, one thing we should mention about the early on as well is, you know, sometimes, a lot of times people start companies with friends or family, and it may seem like, oh, we're growing the business so quickly, we're so excited. get that partnership agreement
Yes.
sound, talk to a lawyer. You know, it's like a prenup, to bring it back to the dating and marriage analogy. You'll be happy you did it because you just want all the bases covered. Let's get it over with. You know, it's a reality of doing business.
I think also if we go back to your 4 Post-it notes, it is, you could think, what does this person bring to the table? Now, if they weren't there,
Yeah.
how could I fill in those holes?
Right.
And then it becomes less scary, right? It's less amorphous. You have something concrete saying, I think I can do this on my own.
And I know plenty of partners, they're complete opposites, but they make it work.
Yeah.
Right. And that's to your point about
The
communication.
whole is greater than
Yeah.
the sum of the parts.
And communicating and having the same values.
Yeah.
Yep.
Going forward. Okay, let's move to the last question about putting yourself out there.
How do I get more comfortable in media situations talking about the message that I have for entrepreneurs? I'm really passionate about it, but I sort of stumble and bumble my way through, and I want to come across as more professional.
So I think there are 2 things going on. One is her public speaking, just simply, are you a good public speaker? And second, are you comfortable talking about yourself?
So the big thing that I would always say is practice, practice, practice. You can't practice enough, and that means maybe taping yourself, maybe having one of your close friends watch you, critique you, having a friend of a friend give you some feedback, and really practice. But the other thing that I would say is remember that you know this information probably better than anybody else, and that really should build up your confidence. And don't try to memorize everything. It's so much better just to have some talking points and then just be natural about it and let it flow. I feel like too often people get caught up in particular words and memorization. If they forget one word, it just totally throws them off. Just remember that you know this information better than anyone else. Remember the bullet points and then just be natural.
Right, people want to see that you're confident.
Yeah,
And
I think those
passionate.
are all great points. I mean, that's something I preach. I work with entrepreneurs every day on this kind of thing. And I think it's not only practicing and getting comfortable in your own skin as a speaker, it's knowing what your story is in the first place. I actually call it the bar pitch. We've got the great elevator pitch here. The bar pitch for me is literally like a 2-sentence explanation if we were to meet in a bar. What do you do? Just talk about it. Talk from the heart. I think the problem I see over and over again is business owners are so passionate, like she said, and so close to their businesses that they just can't see it objectively. They don't know what's most interesting. Think about if you were talking to your grandmother, if you were talking to your nephew. What do you do? Boil it down into simple terms and get back to why you started this company in the first place. It's just going to flow naturally because chances are you're pretty passionate about what you do. That's going to be reflected in how you speak about
Well, it's
it.
interesting because the passion makes you authentic, right? And it makes it so that you're able to kind of speak a little bit more off the cuff, but it can also get you kind of mired in the weeds.
Right.
Well, and there's an expression I use about writing when I work with entrepreneurs that are trying to write, and I say, don't write what you think good writing should sound like. I would say the same thing about pitching or talking about your company publicly. Don't think about buzzwords, and to your point about memorizing and this and that. Just have a few bullet points, know what you want to talk about, and just let it flow.
Yeah.
Talk like a human being.
Talk like a human
Yeah.
being. Yes.
Talk like a human being.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. If you don't know all of these words, it's okay. And don't pretend.
Or call me. I'm happy to help.
All right, well, great. This was great advice. Thanks so much,
Thank
both
you.
of you.
Thank you.